Hello, it's Jack Tutor here of Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guest this time is Julia Svensson, a Swedish producer based in London who makes music as Aircode. And the new Aircode record, Surface Tension, is out now on Gin and Platonic. Julia's music is really compelling. There's references in there to kind of club adjacent genres. You've got bits of drum and bass, bits of dub in there, but they've been warped in service of something that's often much stranger, more spacious, more shadowy. We talk in this discussion about Julia's connection to computer game music, and there are definitely points on this new record, Surface Tension, where you feel like a character kind of stuck in the corridors of a computer game, continually rounding back to where you started, unable to progress to the next bit due to some kind of circuitry glitch. And I love the description that Julia gives in the intro chat of how she approaches playing live at the moment. It's really vivid. And his whole discussion was great. I was so glad to have Julia on the podcast. She picked 3 really interesting records and we had a good chat about them. Thoroughly recommend you check out Surface Tension 2. So if you're enjoying Crucial Listening, please consider donating to the show, one-off or monthly, over at ko-fi.com/crucial listening. I've put a link in the show notes too. Just helps keep the show afloat. And if you're just listening and enjoying the podcast, that's great too. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoy this discussion with Julia, aka Aircode, on Crucial Listening. Hello Julia, welcome to Crucial Listening.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. So you're here to talk about 3 important albums that you've picked for the show. Before we get to those, I want to talk about your new record, Surface Tension, which has come out on Gin and Platonic just recently. So I wanted to start by asking about your process. I mean, I read an interview on AQMB last year that you mentioned about creating very intuitively and that you don't have a plan going in. So I wonder if that held true as well for this record too.
Yeah, it very much does. Like, I never really have a plan of what kind of song I want to make or what kind of track I want to make. So a lot of time it ends up being like a really chaotic track, or it is like a very scaled back one. It's just, I just start and just press random things until it feels good, and then that's kind of the direction I end up going in. Every time I try to make music that is like, okay, I'm gonna make a techno track on it, which I never do in that way, but if I'm trying to make a specific genre, a specific styled music, or even specific feeling of the music, it's never really feels authentic. So I think like the intuitive kind of process is really worked out in that way.
I mean, I find this to be like have a very different atmosphere to say something like Grounded, and I've been trying to wrestle with, like, put my finger on what that is, at least to my ears. There's something about the beats that feel a bit more cryptic. I don't know if that word's right, but the melodies feel almost like less forthcoming. There's like a real, tension in there, and like how those elements are kind of coming forward. So I wondered if, looking back, like whether it felt different making this record in any way compared to the last one. Was there any way that the process, despite the absence of plan, kind of ended up deviating from how you've done things before?
I think it's mainly about the situation during which it was created. So Grounded was made during lockdown mainly, and then kind of after that as well. But doing that I felt very like calm and had so much time, and it was, I don't know, maybe that really affected the way like this record has been kind of created in all the like squeezed in bits of time that I've had free. Because I work full time and all of that, so, and it's quite a chaotic place to live in London, so and I require quite a lot of downtime in order to be able to really focus. So I think therefore that like this record's kind of come out differently because it's been made over such a long period of time in terms of like each bit, because I haven't had as much time. And so other than that, I don't know. I think it's mainly just the way I've been feeling that probably comes out in that way, rather than like a different kind of approach to it. Because it's all been done kind of similarly. Maybe I've listened to different kinds of music or things like that. That's like also inspired it. Yeah. But yeah, maybe that's why the kind of like the tension of like the time pressure and more stress is there.
Right, yeah. You mentioned that you're creating music in the margins between work and everything else you've got going on. I mean, when do those sessions tend to fall? Are you someone who works late into the night, or what does it look like?
I have a normal, like not very like standard 9-to-5 job. But I get pretty tired very easily, so often I come home and I'm like, I try to make stuff, and then I kind of get this like unsatisfied feeling of just feeling like I don't have time to do the thing, and then a lot of time the music comes out feeling very agitated. Currently, I think this record was actually made quite a while ago. Right. Can't even remember when it was made now. It was like more than a year ago, I think, almost. Mainly, like I finalized it in the meantime, but it was finished almost directly after Grounded came out, I think, of like the overall thing of it. But yeah, so that's it's kind of in the evenings after work, or in the weekends when I don't want to go to the woods or out and about, then that's when I make it.
Yeah, sure. I was so interesting you just said, the fact that this music is coming out more agitated, and it kind of takes me back to what you said originally about not having a plan. I can imagine that potentially if you did have a plan, and then this music was coming out in this very pronounced agitated way, that unless that adhered, you went in being like, I'm going to make something agitated. That may be something that I guess you may not pursue. So I wondered if not having a plan, does that kind of liberate you to reflect yourself back at yourself and be like, okay, this is the kind of music that I'm going to make in this moment, so I'm going to just lean hard into my circumstances and what my brain is driving to make at this moment.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people have the process of like, I feel this way, so now I'm gonna make something that kind of like amplifies that, or like doing the opposite. Well, I think I find out how I'm feeling a bit through the music that I'm accidentally made. So it kind of informs me rather than the other way around. Because like I don't really know how I'm feeling most of the time, so it's good to be told by the sound that comes out. So you're like, oh right, maybe I need to trying to chill out a bit. So I think that's kind of the way that's gone about.
And in terms of equipment that you use and software, I mean, do you have anything at the moment that is particularly exciting to you, or something, I don't know, like a plug-in, a bit of hardware that is really getting you buzzed at the moment? I don't know whether or not that way of thinking kind of aligns with your experience of making music, but yeah, does anything protrude when I ask that?
So I'm quite lazy and have been like I never really get any new plugins or software. I've been using a lot of the same samples for like many years now. Like occasionally, once every 6 months, I'll find a new sample pack maybe that I download and then manipulate, and I get really excited. But that happens so rarely that it feels. Yeah, I did get actually as a MIDI keyboard for the first time in. I used to have a really bad one that broke like 5 years ago almost. So I bought a MIDI keyboard for the first time. So before that, I've been using the keyboard on the actual computer to play everything.
Wow.
So yeah, I finally have a MIDI keyboard. So the velocity, I don't actually have to edit the velocity in hindsight. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I can just press the keys and it feels the weight of the key. So that's pretty useful.
Yeah, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah. And one final question I wanted to ask about your music is, I saw you play live as well. I saw you supported Tirza recently at the Colour Factory. How do you tend to approach the live scenario? Are you transposing material from your records and playing it live? I mean, do you think of it as a completely different domain? Like, what's your relationship like with live performance?
I've struggled with that for quite some time because I used to try to play via my laptop and I didn't really find a good way to do that. And then I started using CDJs. And then it felt really boring to just play tracks on CDJs. So then I started just like really like slowing stuff down a lot, especially in venues that allow for a lot of that has a lot of natural like reverb and like good speakers as well. Obviously, it makes a big difference. So I think I just started like layering and working with kind of bits of music, as in like from all my different releases and music that I made, kind of overlapping that in a live setting, and it's getting slower and slower. So it started off being like kind of the standard BPM of the music that I made, but now I'm like down in the like 12 BPM range.
Wow.
Sometimes so it's kind of just letting every single sound kind of like ring out entirely, which I find a lot like more fun to do, but it obviously means that the live set is quite different from the music itself a lot of the time. But then it goes back up in tempo sometimes, but like a lot of it is very, very low BPMs, kind of working so in that range.
That's awesome. How did that gig go at the Colour Factory?
That was actually a DJ gig.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't really know what to do because I've never really DJ'd before someone playing live before, but it went well.
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
Julia, the record is really, really good. I listened to it for the first time on the Underground in London, and then wanted to immediately ask about.
Could you hear anything?
I have some good earbuds. That's a very good question. Like, probably wasn't ideal. I've listened to it in other places since. It's very different. Okay. But no, I immediately was like, okay, really would love to speak to Julia about this album. Cool. And then get you on the podcast because it is really, really good. I'll put a link in the show notes so people can check it out. Yeah, let's talk about your 3 important albums now. So one question I like to ask at this point is how you thought about the word important when picking your list of 3 records. So was there a way that you understood important in order to come up with the list that you did?
Yeah, I was kind of struggling first I mean, I'm sure everyone says this, but struggling to narrow it down a lot. And first I just started thinking of records I really, really, really like in general, and then trying to like think of more of about how to define it. So I think I just picked albums that like at some point have just really shifted something in how I view music, especially like the music I make. So once I've started listening to them, they've like just changed a way of approaching music in both listening and making in some way. So that's kind of how I defined it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's go for your first important album. So I don't know if you had a preferential order, but yeah, which one do you want to talk about first?
I haven't really thought about that actually. If you want to pick one,
can. Sure. I mean, they're in an order on my sheet, which is totally arbitrary.
Okay, perfect.
So let's go with that. Yeah. So you may need to assist the pronunciation of this one. I don't know if you knew better, but Esbjørn Svensson Trio.
Yeah.
And the record is called Leukocyte. Are we saying that? What do you reckon?
I think so. I'm actually not sure myself. I'm not gonna lie.
Cool.
Yeah. So that one is actually by my uncle. He's was in that band. So that's mainly why it was like. It's one that's like really close to my heart in general. It's one of the like first kind of very like experimental kind of dark records. So before it's mainly like just straight jazz, and then that came along. So yeah, it was just one of, because I heard it very early because I'm related.
Yeah.
So it's been in I probably listened to like a lot of pop music or stuff like that, or like emo music back then, but this was kind of one of the first ones that I listened to that was very very kind of like changed the way that I thought that you can make a record.
Yeah, tell me a bit about that. What was it about this record that kind of changed the way you thought about those concepts?
Yeah, so it's like it's got a very like clear kind of, what I really like in a record is the kind of dynamic range in general. Like for me, a good record, it normally has a lot of ups and downs and very changing throughout, like changes a lot throughout the course of the record. And this one, I just feel like it has a very clear kind of, it goes up, it's got a couple of like jazz, it's very like atmospheric, and then it's got some straight jazz piano tracks, and it's just quite like an emotional roller coaster, and it gets pretty like angry at points and then very calm. There's like a track in there that's just silent for a minute or something.
Yeah.
It kind of just gives you that breathing room. So it's just changing like how I viewed how an album could be laid out. That it was just not like a lot of good songs in a row, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, and because I came across it so early on, that was like one of my first experiences with that. So that was kind of a big point in that regard.
And are there tracks on this that particularly protrude for you?
I'm really bad at remembering anything in general. So titles and track names I can never remember. I'm not sure. I just like the whole, even the first one, Decade. And when I listen to an album, it's very rare that I even remember what song is which song, because it's just a flow of music for me. So
yeah,
I can't even remember which title belongs to what sounds.
Totally fair.
Sorry, I'm not able to answer that question. I don't think.
That's all good. And to be fair, it is a bit of an unfair question on this one, because as you say, the sequencing is really lovely to the point of seamlessness, and there's a couple of kind of suites, right, that can comprise the records, where you've got one consisting of, just bring up the track list now, the two like premonition pieces that we got in the version that I heard, and then the Leukocyte set, as you say, with that silent piece. And yeah, it's a really striking set of music. You say it gets very angry at points. I mean, it sounds like I don't know if you know much about the process, but it sounds like they're doing a lot of funneling the sound of the acoustic instruments, so that the bass, the piano, and the drums, through various effects. There's a few wonderful points where there's like feedback sweeping across the room. Like, do you know much about like the process of making the record of this one?
God, so long ago now. I'm pretty sure this was improvised, but don't take my word for that because I really can't remember. Again, it's 2008, so
yeah,
quite a long time ago. I want to say it's improvised. If any of them listen to this and hear it, and don't take my word for it. But yeah, it's yes, that's what I think I remember, but maybe not.
And is it one you still listen to now?
I do. I tend to come back to it quite in very specific, like when I'm in a very specific mood. But yeah, it can be like years in between listening to it, and then sometimes I listen to it a lot. And normally on like long walks, I'll listen to it quite often still.
You mentioned before you listened to this record, you were listening to, was it emo? You said. Yeah. I
mean, that was probably the most avant-garde music I was listening to back in 2008. So I was like 13, maybe.
Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah.
So how did this, if it did at all, how did this affect your listening coming into this record, or records, like this around the similar time? Did it have an impact on the music you were listening to after that point? Did you start to seek out different music?
Yeah, I think I got more of an interest in, because before that it was just, I was like jazz, so I was like, okay, it's nice in the background, I didn't really think that it was nothing that I listened to actively. I think with this record, I kind of started seeking out more like instrumental music in general, just the stuff that didn't have vocals on it. It was even that was kind of a big change in just how I view music. That is, you don't have to sing, it's fine. A piece can be like, the instruments can do its own thing. So I think just that in general, I can't remember what else I started listening to after that really, but definitely I think it started that kind of understanding of that music can be more than what's on the radio as well, which is quite important if you want to end up making music.
Yeah,
that is not pop music.
And were you making music at this point?
No, I think I just started learning a bit of guitar probably, or playing a tiny bit of piano, but not very well, and still not very well to this day. So yeah, I mean, I wrote a couple of songs when I was a kid, as in sang them and wrote them down in a little notebook, but they were not saying much, I don't think.
And this is your uncle, so were there many players in your family generally? Like, was it a particularly musical family?
Not really then. I think my granddad listened to a lot of jazz, which is why my uncle got really into it. But yeah, a lot of my cousins now are making music in their own forms, like playing drums or guitar, singing and stuff.
Julia, let's go to your second important record now. So the second one I got on the list is Akira Yamaoka, Silent Hill 2 soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
2001. Yeah. So, yeah, give me a little introduction as to why this one's important to you.
This one, I mean, so I've never played the game because I'm too scared of playing horror games. So it's kind of funny that I just got really into this soundtrack without actually having the context of what it's made for. I know what the game is, like Silent Hill, and I've sat behind my boyfriend playing it a bit, and kind of covered my eyes as I was watching it, so kind of defeating the point of watching someone play a game when you're not looking. But it's just something about the soundtrack that's kind of really stuck with me. I'm also really interested in music for games in general, because it's made in such a different way. It's like a lot of stuff is it's meant to be looped as well. So listening to it as an album is quite interesting, when a lot of them are very short pieces that are meant to just kind of repeat themselves over and over and over again. But when you listen to them very shortly, it's kind of giving a very different atmosphere. Yeah, I started listening to it, like I was told that like some stuff from the other album sounded a bit like it was from Silent Hill, and I was like, oh, okay, let me listen to it again. And I was like, oh yeah, it does, but that was cool. Like, I don't know, I just really like the atmosphere of it, even though it's something that kind of scares me. But yeah, I'm just really interested in like game music. I don't really play video games myself that much. I played a bit of PlayStation 2 games during lockdown, but more interested in the idea of it than actually playing, I think.
I'm so glad you said that you were too scared to play it, because that was my experience. Like, I read a lot of PlayStation magazines when I was younger, and this game was always featured in them, and the screenshots always looked really horrible. But it had this kind of mythos about it, because it was clearly like a super popular game. I was so intrigued to see you having picked the soundtrack. So you mentioned, I watched a couple of like playthroughs, not all of them, but little bits, just to get a sense of where the music fits in. It's interesting because a lot of the game seems to be like pretty silent, or the music is absent for large swathes of it. So to hear this as an unbroken soundtrack is really interesting. I wondered if hearing it kind of in situ within the game itself kind of changed your relationship with it, or changed how you thought about the music.
Well, it hasn't, because I've not played it.
right.
I don't know. I actually don't really know when the music is played. I've just kind of assumed that it's more in the background. Maybe it's very selected points during the game that it's played. I should have looked this up before, but yeah, it's funny to just really like one aspect of something and have no idea about the rest because you're too scared.
Yeah, for sure.
Feels a bit like a cop out. I feel like I should like bite the bullet and actually play it, but I don't know. It's Halloween season. It's not the right time. Too scary.
Yeah, I thought that, and bottled it before this interview. So yeah, all good. I mean, there are any particular pieces on this soundtrack, or there's a lot of different modes, right? It goes through some kind of almost like country tinged kind of rock music. There's some more atmospheric pieces. Like, what are the areas of this soundtrack that you gravitate towards most?
I think I just like I really like when an album is just like keeps surprising you, really, which is mainly what I like about it so much. That it's got, like it said, like it got some country bits, rock. It's got some like really like nice piano pieces, some really atmospheric stuff. It's got the like early 2000s kind of drum beats. It's I just like it as a whole, and then doing different parts. When I come back to it, like I always like something different. I mean, it's got how many tracks on it as well? It's so many. Like 30, I think. Yeah. So 30 pieces. So I think I just like them together, all of it, as like I like being surprised by what's coming next. Which they just kind of amplify each other. Like when it's like a acoustic like guitar piece after a really like processed ambient one. It's like quite nice.
I know you were into you mentioned like Time Splitters 2 as well as being another one for you in that interview I read. So what is it about that one as well that really jumped out for you?
Yeah, that's a game that I've actually played and surprisingly finished, because it was incredibly difficult, because it was made so early on that the controls are really terrible. So it's like these puzzles where you're like, I have no idea how people completed this before the internet, because if I didn't Google it, it's like there was one where you had to follow this one scene where you had to follow this person through Neo Tokyo, and it's just impossible to figure out how to do it without getting spotted. Or it literally took so long, and I had to Google it, and I was like, this is not... Old games are so hard because you can't see anything because the draw distance is really bad and things. Yeah, that soundtrack also, the first level I had to play maybe like 30 times or more probably, so I had to sit with that music for a very long time, and I was like, I would hate this game already if it wasn't for the soundtrack being so good. So I kind of enjoyed just hearing that like same like 3 minute loop over and over and over again for like keep failing like frustratingly all the time. So I think maybe Silent Hill will be less scary now that I've listened to the soundtrack so much that...
Yeah.
I mean, if you say it's quiet for a lot of the time, then actually maybe not. That's maybe not going to help. I thought that would help me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because I heard the main theme come in on Silent Hill, like the first track, and I was like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad, because it's totally different to what I expected based on my, like, the visual manifestation of that game. It's so interesting you mentioned about this, this use of repetition within gaming and gaming soundtracks, where it has to be of a sort which is somehow palatable over long experiences. You mentioned these albums had an impact on how you relate to creating your own music. I wondered whether what did that look like with the Silent Hill record, and I wondered whether or not the kind of that repetition aspect was any part of it as well.
Yeah, maybe. I think just like the kind of there's so many different pieces of music within the same like project that I think that part is like really inspiring in a way that like you're allowed to make music that doesn't sound at all like the other projects, but if the feeling is the same and if the emotions are, if you can connect it like emotionally rather than by genre, like I think that's like a very important thing for me. The two pieces of music can be seemingly so different, but if there's something that ties them together in terms of mood or feeling, that's like really changes the way I've viewed music, which just kind of helped do as well. Like it's like the music on this record is so different, like you said, like so many different types of genres and music and everything, and the length, and I know it's obviously made for a specific purpose, but it's still useful to think of in terms of just making a record in general, I think.
And you mentioned you got into playing PlayStation 2 games during lockdown. Had you been much of a gamer before that, and how did you come to get on the PlayStation 2?
I think did I buy one? I can't remember now. Maybe me and my housemate bought one, and then one of the other housemates just brought over loads of games from home at some point. So we had like 30 different games. I got really into playing Dynasty Warriors, which is like kind of like it was like Dynasty Warriors 5. So it's like kind of button mashing game, some tactic, but a lot of it was just pressing buttons as fast as you can. Very good for relieving any stress you feel. Well, I played some when I was younger, I think. Mainly, my brother played a lot more, and there was a lot of like FIFA and stuff like that. But I never really got into the sport games in that way. But yeah, I think during lockdown it was just there, and didn't have anything else to do. So why not?
Right, yeah.
And they're cheap as well, so every time you wanted to get a game, it was just like, £2, great. So very, very good price range if you want to play a new game, compared to the new ones now, they're like £50-60.
have one more important record. So it is Pineco Moonshine, which is a label, and it's the compilation Vector Space, released in 2020. So yeah, give me a little introduction as to why this one's important to you.
This was kind of funny. I didn't really know if I should pick it or not, mainly because it's a compilation. It's quite new as well, and I just keep coming back to it. I think it's mainly like the label in general that I wanted to pick more than like maybe the release itself. It's just like this very smooth, atmospheric but very complex drum and bass basically, and I think every time I listen to it, like I feel like my heart like opens up in a weird way. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I think it's, for me, it's got like the perfect low end and the perfect top end, and it's just like it just feels very like open and spacious, that every production on this label in general. So it's kind of, I don't really know why I picked it. It's just that every time I come back to it, it's just kind of, I get surprised by different tracks, and especially if you listen to it on like really loudly or on good headphones. I keep hearing new details, and it's just it's like the patience and clarity of the sound that I just kind of always come back to when I like when I feel a bit stuck almost. It's more about the production value of it is quite like what I would like to reach to some extent. I don't know.
Do you remember how you discovered it?
I don't know. I was like, so it's run by this guy called Nick TVG, I think. And I think I was just listening to some of their music, and then just found a label through that during lockdown. I guess it was also during lockdown because it was, I couldn't go clubbing, which I don't do now either, that you actually can. So, but it was like this nostalgia for being in the club and hearing like loud dance music, which now I don't do anyway. So there was kind of this temporary desire for something that now I actually got a chance to do. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. So, but yeah, during that time, I think that's when I found it, and it was just because it is very listenable at home as well. You don't have to. I like listening to dance music at home more than I enjoy being in a club, to be honest, at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you there. What do you think changed for you in terms of your relationship to clubbing?
I don't really know. I think I was getting a bit tired of it before lockdown happened, and then lockdown happened, and I was like, I miss going to the club. And then I was allowed to go to the club, and I tried, and I don't know. I think I just don't feel the same as I used to. I can still really enjoy the music and everything, but I think there's something about like I don't like being up. And it's like I feel like I'm now, every time I need to go to a club, I'm like, okay, I have to go there, I have to be there, and then I have to go home, and so I'm just going lazy with it. But yeah, it just doesn't feel the same in there. But I don't know if I think that's probably something in me that's changed rather than, I'm sure the clubs have obviously changed a lot in general as well, and the relationship many people have to clubbing has changed. But I think now it doesn't do it for me anymore. And I still like dancing and I still like the music, but it's just the being in that space that is like, I don't know what it is. I don't crave it.
I mean, you mentioned that clubs have changed. I'm someone who's kind of been away from clubbing for a while, mainly because of parenthood. But what has changed, do you think, in terms of, what has changed about clubbing, do you think? At least from your perspective.
I feel so unqualified to talk about it because I kind of avoid it, and I feel like I find it really hard to distance the way I feel about something and what the actual reality is in terms of that. Because I know that there's so many club nights, especially in London now. There's as much as ever, really. A lot of clubs have closed down, obviously there's like a more limited amount, like you can't, there's less clubs. I think it's a very precarious situation for a lot of clubs. It just feels like not stricter, but I don't know, maybe I'm just older. I'm just aged too much during lockdown mentally. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it really.
Yeah. I mean, I wondered if it was anything kind of adjacent to what seemed to happen to festivals in the advent of lockdown, where there seemed to be a difficulty in knowing how to do those mass events. Again, from an organizational standpoint, there were lots of events that seemed to really struggle, and fundamental things like, making water available, or up to like more severe stuff, like crowd control. Actually, water's also very severe, obviously, but those kind of fundamental things, you want taken care of at an event, seem to suddenly feel very volatile. So I wonder whether or not, like, that's the same from a clubbing standpoint, just that fundamental fact of organizing lots of people in a confined space. People just kind of got out of practice,
Yeah, I think also like there's a lot more like struggling with money in terms of, I guess, venues are having a horrible time as well. And I don't know, it's, I wish I had more to say on it, but I think I have a hard time going past my own personal feeling around it in order to make like a judgment on the actual state of the... A lot of people have very strong opinions on it, but I think feeling very unqualified to talk about the clubs at the current moment. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned you've moved to listening to... you enjoy listening to dance music at home.
Not as much as I used to either, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. I don't listen to club music as much as I used to at all.
And do you think that's linked as well?
Probably, yeah. I would look forward to listening to club music in the club, and now because I don't listen to it as much at all, it's maybe that's also why I don't want to go, because I don't get hyped up sitting at home and listening to club music, so it's hard to you don't build that desire to go and feel that music, even though it's something I really appreciate and I really enjoy that feeling. But I think, I don't know, maybe it's just a temporary thing, who knows, we'll find out.
With this compilation, I mean, is there something about this kind of music? I mean, you've mentioned the kind of some of the production attributes of this record. I mean, it's a wonderful sounding record. Sounds amazing. Like, sounded incredible in my car. It sounds, as you say, really good over headphones. So is it the kind of production and the fact that there's so much to enjoy over those kind of more private circumstances, which means that this is still interesting to you outside of a club context? Is that the thing that kind of means that something like this is still palatable at home?
Yeah, I think so. Like there's such a dynamic range of this music, I think, and like every time I listen to it, it's kind of like taking a deep breath, which is something I can sometimes feel in the club, but with this music, it's because it's got enough. It's like smooth enough and got enough depth in it that I don't get bored of it. And every time I listen to it, I can kind of find something new, or like I can obsess over a different detail. Sometimes it's the atmospherics, or sometimes it's just a snare, or like I just find different parts of the tracks that kind of just feels very liberating to listen to. And I think like that dance music can really have that feeling at home as well, or in the club as well. Obviously it would sound pretty good there as well, but this record's also, some of the tracks are very intense and kind of full on, but some of them have a lot of downtime. Like there's a track that's like really long, like 9 minutes, and a lot of them kind of just allow you kind of breathe and like really enjoy the heavy sounds and the quiet moments. Sometimes it's more like dubsteppy almost than it is drum and bassy, I think. And I think it's just like a way of enjoying dance music, like making dance music that's made not only for its functionality. It's kind of, it feels like it is its own piece of music. That in the same way that like any other genre can be, that you just listen to. Basically, I think maybe that's why it kind of sticks with me as well.
Yeah, the fact you mentioned about taking a breath, and yes, and the 9-minute track as well is very interesting, because it does feel like that. I notice this a lot with this album. It feels like it's really appraising specific samples. It feels like obviously quite fundamental to like a lot of drum and bass and drum funk, where they just love the sound of, as you say, like one snare. So you hear that, probably a good 150 times over the course of 9 minutes. But,
exactly.
But it can totally stand that kind of laboured repetition, because it's such a, there's something about it that they've latched onto,
Mm-hmm. I have a thing for this like very specific snare sound. It sounds very open-ended. I don't know the actual terminology of it, but it's just this one like snare that just feels like it opens up, and it just I don't know. Every time I have a playlist that's called like the perfect snare. So with just music, just every time I listen to something and it's just got like that exact snare sound I really like, just put it in there. So yeah. I like a good snare.
Do you spend a lot in your music? Do you spend a lot of time like fine-tuning the stuff that falls into that kind of snare region?
I don't know. I don't think I actually do. Maybe I need to get working on that snare sound. I think it's because I said like I kind of just want to get everything out as quickly as possible, so that being like really patient with the sound, it just. Like if I'm like, okay, I need to make a snare, that would feel too explicit. Like I wouldn't. Maybe I just need to get over myself and just do it. But I feel like, it's rare that I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna do this. Now I need to really work on this. Like a lot of the sounds that I kind of make or manipulate, it's also very like just in the flow of the process. So to sit down and actually learn to do a snare, it would require me to actually look into how to do it.
Fair.
That's but no, maybe that's something I actually, you need to learn new things, so maybe it would be a good thing to sort out. My music will just be full of snares all of a sudden.
I saw you mention actually with drum and bass, like you listen to a lot of older drum and bass as well. Do you go quite a way back with drum and bass? Like, when did that start to be a feature of your life?
And not really at all. I think I started enjoying drum and bass like not very long ago at all. It's funny because it's not like I wouldn't go to like a drum and bass night. It's like kind of I just like jungle drum and bass at home, kind of, which is kind of weird, I guess, because that's not what it's for. Like I basically didn't listen to any dance music before I moved to London, so.
Right.
The first time I went to some like really bad techno night, and I was like, this is amazing. This is the best. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And now I don't even want to know. It was just a kick drum. You just play me a 4 on the floor kick drum. I'll be like, wow, this is crazy. This is like nothing I've never heard before. I grew up in a place where there was a lot of like indie. The clubs would play like Schlager or indie songs. So I never went to the clubs, or EDM obviously because it's Sweden. So actually that is dance music, of course, but not other kind of dance music. Never really heard before. Wow.
So it's only when you move over to London, so then that's when I presume drum and bass came in as well, right?
Yeah. But even that was a lot later, I think. Slow process. I had to start from scratch. Right. So I'm working my way up to the slightly newer genres.
Julia, I've got one more question for you, and it's about how you listen to music and how you buy music. Like basically how music comes into your life as a listener. So do you have preferred formats? Do you have places you like to go to get your music? Yeah, what does that look like?
It really depends on what kind of music. I think I have very like in order to my favorite way of just finding a new music is just clicking through whatever platform I'm using at the time. Is this, if it's like SoundCloud or YouTube or whatever, just clicking through like related stuff, or if I find something that sometimes I go to Discord, go to Discog and kind of just find like I like the association game where you just dig deeper and deeper and deeper and eventually stumble on stuff. Obviously I don't buy any records. I have some CDs because I have a really bad CD player. That sounds like shit, but I would like to have a good stereo one day where you can actually play CDs, because I can't afford to buy vinyl, but I can afford to buy CDs every now and then, especially old ones. So I think CDs is a more fun format because I don't know. I like the little booklet basically that it comes with. Otherwise, yeah, buy stuff on Bandcamp, but that's obviously mainly like newer music. It's easier to find on Bandcamp. But yeah, CDs are great.
CDs are great. Yeah, I'm always really glad to hear people say that, because I have a real soft spot for CDs.
Yeah.
They get a bad rap, but people I think are starting to come around.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's a lot easier to keep in your house.
Right.
Yeah, they're nice to look at as well. Yeah. Maybe something about the early Y2K nostalgia that we all are having now. So we can't come back around to that time period now. So that's why CDs are good.
That and the vinyl pressing fiasco, I think it's the perfect storm, isn't it, for CDs to have their moment again? Yeah, absolutely.
You can get those done anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a CD burner that I was like, maybe I should put some of my own music on it and do something, but I can't get it to work. So I guess that's why when you buy cheap, buy twice. So or whatever they say. So but it just doesn't work.
So yeah, I was gonna ask if you like CD compilations a thing for you. Did you burn off your own CD comps back in the day?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I found this CD that has the track listing on it, and every other song on the compilation. Oh, that sounds so professional. I don't think you could call it that. Every other song was a Hogwarts song, and then every other song was Rammstein. So
wow,
that was apparently my music taste back then. Pretty good, I guess. Good variation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, CD compilations. I think just because that was the first opportunity as younger people to curate your own track lists. I think people took a while to finesse the sense of how to do that, right? I had some compilations that were similar, where it was like 3/4 just one band, which felt to really nullify the point.
So just buy the CD.
Yeah.
Oh, but then you didn't feel like you'd made it. You needed to have the creative output.
That's it. I needed to biro every track name myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, Julia, thank you so much. It's been wicked to talk through. I mean, first your record, which I'll repeat is awesome, and this selection of 3 records was super interesting. It's very eclectic, and I had loads of fun listening to these and hearing your reasons for why they connect with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to everyone listening, see you next time. Goodbye.